Hello, Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network listeners. I am Jeff Hawkins, co-host of Shake Them Ropes, with a very special announcement. If it's been a while or you've never listened to us before, the original gang is back. Myself and Rob McCarran, back talking wrestling. We have no idea where this show's going to go, where we're going to keep any of the old bits or any of the old things in there. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a journey, and we'd like for you to come along with us. Only on Shake Them Ropes on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Music of the Mat Remix on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network. I'm your host, Andrew Rich, joined today by a first-time guest here on the show. I know him from the VOW Discord as Fool Inc., but he also goes by the more standard name of Anthony Poole. Hello, Anthony.
Hello. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing, man?
Doing okay. Happy to be on the show. When you reached out, I was pleasantly surprised because, like you said, we know each other from the Discord and primarily like the music channel and the music league that we have on the Discord. So it was really cool to see you reach out to see if I wanted to be on, and happy to get this started.
Definitely glad you're here. Yeah, for sure. Always nice to have a first-time guest on the show. Now, I ask this to everyone I have on from the Discord, and that is, where does the name Fool Inc. come from? And that's all one word, Foolinc.
Yeah, I've had this handle since I was 18, and it kind of just came from, I think, at one time I was like, well, if I want to potentially start something, company, whatever, what would be an interesting name? And weirdly enough, it turned into an internet handle for my whole adult life.
Yeah, I was wondering, were you considering other options like Fool LLC, Fool Limited, Fool S Corporation, anything like that?
No, not at the time, but no, honestly, Fool Limited probably would actually been pretty good.
Well, in any event, whatever your corporation name might be, today's episode here is called Transitional Champions. Now, in wrestling, a transitional champion is someone who wins a title and then only holds it for a short period of time before they drop it to someone else, either because it's a way to get the belt off of one wrestler and onto another without those two guys actually having a match. There's a middleman in between, or it's a way to keep things interesting, keep people on their toes with the booking, maybe pop a rating. Maybe it's, the natural conclusion to a story, and they don't really need to, be the champion for that long. It's all about the cathartic win more so than the actual reign itself. Mick Foley is a classic example of a transitional champion, where he was like a 3-time WWF champion, but he only held the belt for like a month combined, including a one-day reign. James Gibson in ROH as well was a transitional champion from CM Punk to Bryan Danielson. Homicide, the same company with Danielson to Morishima. The Iron Sheik back in the 80s, to Hogan. There are just a bunch of examples out there, Anthony.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the other things is with transitional champions is almost a test, right? So a good one would actually have been like, when Bret Hart first won a title, or even Edge, right? For WWE, where he beat John Cena and then kind of lost it right back immediately. So even though the transition didn't go from one person to a different person, it's still kind of the same, which spoiler alert for what might be coming down from each of us is sometimes sometimes you go from one singer to a second singer to a third singer, and sometimes, hey, the first singer comes back.
And timing wise, this is a good topic to do because Darby Allin just won the AEW World Title last week on Dynamite. Really cool moment. And a long time coming for Darby since he's a day one AEW guy. But the thing that everybody and their mother is saying about him being the champion is that they expect him to drop the belt quickly. To be a transitional champion, he'll either drop it back to MJF or to Swerve or to someone else. And they've said that about Darby since day one, pretty much, that if he ever wins, the world title, he'll hold it for a couple weeks, maybe a month or so, and then he'll lose it, which I think will most likely be the case here. And however long this reign does go, I think Darby will make it a memorable one because he knows how to maximize his minutes. That's for sure. And really ultimately getting the win over MJF, finally winning the belt and beating him with the side headlock takeover and paying off that whole story years in the making. I think that's ultimately the most important part of this whole thing. Lengthwise, we'll see what happens, but the actual win itself and the way he won it, they nailed that for sure. Plus, it's Darby Allin. He does crazy, reckless shit in his daily life, so it might be better to err on the side of caution and not have your world championship on a guy like that for months on end, Anthony, so.
Yeah, and I think you already mentioned it in the first example, right? It's Mick Foley. Darby Allin can kind of shares a lot of the same DNA as him. Obviously different body types, but kind of the same reckless mindset in the ring. And quite frankly, I think that's why, like, many people, me myself included, think this is going to be a short reign, not just because it kind of feels like that is going to be the case just because of what the storyline's going, but also just in general where Darby doesn't need the title to beat Darby Allin. It's, at the same time, it's a great story, but kind of like Mick Foley, it's less of a way to establish a wrestler like them and more of an award, right? This is more like the Oscar. Like, you've done so well, so this is a title that's meant to reward that, as opposed to, say, what New Japan did with many wrestlers, including Okada, where you get the title on somebody early to make them, or I guess help build them into being the marquee name that's going to bring in the people from years to come, right? So
yeah, it's the culmination rather than the spark, as you said there, for sure. Plus, we've seen Darby be a great transitional champion before. A few years ago, he beat Samoa Joe for the TNT title, and then every week he was having these kick-ass title matches, just running himself ragged, and then Joe came back like a month later and won the belt back. So it wouldn't be crazy at all if they just repeat that formula here with the world title. And, if it gets some cool matches out of it, then I'm all for it, Anthony.
No, same here.
But yeah, speaking of short tenures, for the music today, as you alluded to there earlier, Anthony, we are going to focus on musicians who are only in a band for a short amount of time. Transitional bandmates, you might call them. I don't know, because bands are certainly not sedentary things. They go through lineup changes all the damn time. And sometimes people come into a band and they're there for a very long time. Sometimes they're not. They're just there for a cup of coffee. And we're looking at the latter, for sure. And this is not the easiest topic to look up either, because, I can think of a lot of bands with lineup changes. But, short-term bandmates is a bit more granular, I think, to really remember and to search for, Anthony.
No, I agree. When I brought it up, like when you laid out the topics that you had in mind, and I'm like, oh, this one's great because of Darby Allin. It's very timely. Very soon was kind of regretting my pick just a little bit. Obviously, this is a great list of songs, but it obviously took probably a little bit more of my time than I originally expected, which is both good and bad, right?
Mm-hmm. And obviously, what we think of as short term is relative. I went with a rule of thumb for them only being on one album, maybe two in some cases. And some of my picks are original members who left early. Some are ones who came in later on. Some of them are guys who would pop in and out for short stints here and there over the years. So again, this took a little bit of time to gather up there, Anthony. So.
And I didn't have that initial mindset. I just was looking for a short time. But I'm pretty sure mine is very similar. Maybe one or two hit a third album, but generally speaking, I think it is, just looking at the names that I have and thinking about it, it's either none, one, or two for the most part.
Yeah. Again, a good rule of thumb there is, to count the albums, I think, is a really good one. Yeah, for sure. But all right, let's get to the music here. We have 10 picks each and a play-out song at the end. Anthony, you are the guest. You'll go first. What's your first pick?
Great. So my first pick is one that I didn't really need to take a long time to think of. It was one of the first things that came to mind. Well-known artist, well-known act. My pick is Ronnie James Dio with his time with Black Sabbath. And the song that I picked is Neon Nights, the lead single from the first album with Ronnie James Dio. Right. So yeah, one of the reasons why I wanted to show that album and that song was just because of how good of a fit Ronnie James Dio was, and obviously it's going to be a different sound, different singer, different input. But I mean, Ronnie James Dio is a legend, even without any of the time spent with Black Sabbath, and obviously he didn't come with the same level of type of baggage actually at the time, right? When they're obviously looking for a new direction, somebody that wasn't dealing with the same sort of problems that Ozzy was at the time, and probably some of their band members too. So now that's definitely one of the reasons why I did. I will say though, is one of the reasons why he left though is unlike a lot of I think the options of reasons why people leave these bands. It's not going to be drugs. This one was more potential pettiness. There's a good little a piece of trivia that when Black Sabbath was recording a live album that had Ronnie James Dio on it, there's all this stories about this infighting of different members of the band going to the production team and being turn me up and turn Ronnie down or whatever the case may be. And so it just seemed to be egos, which kind of also isn't a good example of just Ronnie James Dio in a sense, because he could have been picked for just in general because he had a short term with Rainbow. He had a short term on his own a little bit, and then he has joined Black Sabbath, and then he goes and creates another band centered around himself. But all in all, I guess as a fan, obviously you don't really care too much about that as long as the music's coming in, and he produced a lot of great music.
Yeah, Dio was a real breath of fresh air for Sabbath. He gave the band a real burst of energy after Ozzy and that whole run petered out. And I actually like those last two Ozzy albums, but you could tell that the band was not at the peak of their powers by then. And then along comes Dio. You got Neon Knights, Heaven and Hell, Children of the Sea, Mob Rules, Son of the Southern Cross, just these great songs. And it doesn't sound like the Ozzy stuff, especially the lyrics, because Dio loved his knights and wizards and dragons and stuff like that. But it still kicks ass for sure, Anthony, yeah. And this is the thing with a lot of our picks, is that we could have gone with a bunch of other band members who were not around for very long. Sabbath had so many lineup changes over the years. The lead singers alone, you've got, Dio for a few albums, then Ian Gillan for one, Glenn Hughes for one, Tony Martin for a couple, and then Dio comes back for Dehumanizer, and then Martin comes back. So, a lot of these classic rock bands who have been around for decades, they tend to not be the most stable when it comes to lineups, Anthony.
Oh, for sure.
But my first pick, I just mentioned Ian Gillan and Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple. My first pick is Deep Purple, a band with many lineups, or marks as they're called. This is the Mark IV lineup with David Coverdale, Glenn Hughes, Ian Pace, John Lord, and on guitar, a young guy named Tommy Bolin. This is the only Mark IV album from '75. This is from Come Taste the Band, and this song is called Getting Tighter. Yeah, that's a great song. I'm a big fan of Glenn Hughes and what he and Coverdale brought to Deep Purple when they joined with the Mark III lineup, which is more of like a soul funk infusion. And you can definitely hear it in the way that song just swings and the breakdown in the middle there. Now, Tommy Bolin, he had a real rough go of it because he replaced Joe Walsh in the James Gang, and then he replaced Ritchie Blackmore in Deep Purple. And with the latter, it was especially brutal because fans were yelling, where's Ritchie during shows, and he had drug problems, and the tour was awful. The tour literally broke up the band. It was that bad. So they were literally the opposite of getting tighter. They were getting looser and looser and looser until the band ended. And Tommy sadly died of a drug overdose at the end of '76. So a real heartbreaker of a story. But the actual album itself is pretty good. It isn't in the pantheon of amazing Deep Purple albums. But it's a real good album, regardless, Anthony. So.
No, yeah. When you sent me this list, I was I'm very familiar with Deep Purple's hits. And I wasn't familiar with more of their deep dive work, or not, I'd say deep dive like this. But for me, obviously, I'm like, oh, this is a band that I really never deep dove into. And so when I listened to it, I was like, oh, this is really good. And for all the reasons that you just mentioned, right? It's a bit different. It's a bit funkier. It's like the groove of this song. I'm like, oh, after this podcast, I'm going to this is going to be on my list for the next couple weeks to put into the rotation to get going, for sure. And yeah, honestly, a lot of the story for a lot of these artists isn't going to be ending great. But thankfully, we at least have the music that they have. They were able to produce, even if it wasn't received maybe as well as it should have been when it came out. I guess the other thing is I never knew that Deep Purple was nerdy enough to literally call their like the different groupings of their members marks like like their rocket ships.
Yeah. I mean, again, there have been so many of those lineup changes over the years. I had a few other options for them. Joe Lynn Turner, who sang for Rainbow, he replaced Ian Gillan on the album called Slaves and Masters before Gillan came back. So the Deep Purple, Rainbow, Sabbath, Whitesnake family tree is very interlinked and very extensive there. But there was another guitarist who was briefly in the band, a guy named Joe Satriani. He replaced Ritchie Blackmore on a tour in the 90s, but he was never on any albums because he had his own solo career to do, obviously. So there is a timeline out there where Joe Satriani is a prolonged member of Deep Purple. How about that, Anthony?
Oh, that'd be weird.
Yeah. But, all right, what's your next pick, Anthony?
Well, my next pick is a band that has very few members throughout its lineup. Only two notable changes. This is my pick is Matt Skiba, short run with Blink-182, with the song being Dark Side from the album 9.
She's a girl dressed in black from another world. Lives and breathes like a girl from another world. She don't know my name. She don't have the time of day. Celebrate, medicate till we numb the pain. In the sun it's still dark like it always rains. She don't feel the same. She don't have the time of day. And I wait, 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 and I wait for her. And I wait, 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 and I wait for her. I don't care what you say, no, I don't care what you do. I'm going to the dark side with you. I'm going to the dark side with you. I don't care what you say, no, I don't care what you do. I'm going to the dark side with you. I'm going to the dark side with you. She's a girl I look back to what could have been. Her cloak and dagger.
Okay, so I probably have a little bit of explaining to do on why I chose this song in particular. Because when Matt joined Blink-182, I feel like there was like a lot of good feelings going into it. They released an album called California, which was well received. But one of the things that I remember was getting some comments from friends who were like, "This is good, but it's kind of weird that Matt and Mark kind of have a similar voice." And also I kind of see like I can totally understand how like after having Tom in the band and then having a fallout like that you would probably go to somebody who's maybe a bit more like, not talking about just voice, but like their personality might be a little bit more like what the exact opposite of what you just had. So somebody who's more like Mark can kind of fit in and have it be fun. But then you come into this second album, 9, which is kind of runs into overproduction. This is a first album where they're on Columbia. Columbia's super excited to have them as a band, putting all this effort into it, trying to get a crossover pop album, which in and of itself is kind of confusing to me because at this point, Blink-182 doesn't need to be quote unquote a crossover. At this point, they've been pop punk stars for so long that they're now just mainstream. You don't need to keep pushing them mainstream. You don't need to keep adding stuff, which is kind of why I went with this song, because while it's not bad, it's also, you can kind of see the dials being messed with. Too many cooks kind of getting in there to where it kind of comes confusing. Is this an Alkaline Trio song? Is this a Blink-182 song? Is this actually a Plus 44 song in the skies? The side project of Mark and Travis when Blink-182 first broke up, when Tom created Angels and Airwaves. And as far as I know, there hasn't been any like real bad blood of when Matt left to once again be the front man of Alkaline Trio. So the news is that unlike a couple of the other stories that we're going to see here, like this one seems to have not quite a happy ending, but a mutually beneficial ending where everybody is kind of in a same place or better. So that's at least good.
Yeah. I'm no Blink 182 completist, so I've never heard any of the stuff from the Matt Skiba era. I gotta say, for my own tastes here, I like this. It was a pretty catchy pop punk song, not breaking the mold or anything like that. And Skiba, of course, doesn't sound out of place in a band like this. He has the right voice for it, I think. It was a little odd to hear someone other than Tom or Mark sing on a Blink 182 song, but I enjoyed this. And yeah, credit to Skiba for, graciously stepping aside and letting Tom retake his spot in the band a couple of years ago. I'm sure it helps a lot that he has his own band to go back to, I'm sure.
Exactly.
But that was really cool of him to do, Anthony. So
Yeah. So what was your second song?
Well, my second song here, this is Queens of the Stone Age, and I went with a song from their third album, Songs for the Deaf, and for that album, they got Dave Grohl on drums, which, hey, maybe that'll work. Dave Grohl is a drummer. We'll see what happens here. This is the band's biggest hit. This is No One Knows.
We get these pills to swallow. How they stick in your throat. Tastes like gold. Oh, what you do to me. No one knows. And I realize you're mine. And beautiful am I. And I realize you're mine. And
So yeah, that Dave Grohl can really play the drums. Who knew? But yeah, the band's drummer Gene Troutman, he left as this album was getting going, and at the same time, Dave was struggling with the new Foo Fighters album. So Josh Homme asked Dave to help him out, and all of a sudden, Dave Grohl was back to being, quote unquote, the drummer, and he's pretty darn good at it. I mean that drum breakdown, in the chorus, that's just killer. And the rest of the song is great too. So Dave was only in the band for a handful of months before going back to the Foos and, becoming an even bigger star with that band. But he made the most of it with Queens, I think, Anthony.
Yeah, no. Well, one, obviously, when I first heard that song originally, I instantly picked up Dave was drumming on the song. I'm like, wait, what's Dave Grohl doing on this song? And because that would have been the first time I've probably heard of Queens of the Stone Age, so I had to check it out, see what's it about back in the day. And yeah, it's hearing it again right before the podcast. I'm like, oh yeah, it's Dave Grohl is one of the most easy to pick up drummers in the world, it seems, and kind of makes sense considering one, he's very good, but also kind of self-taught. So you kind of, if you listen to enough Dave Grohl, you kind of understand the Dave Grohlisms of his guitar work, or I mean his guitar work too, but his drum work. I guess the other thing is that with you could have kind of this is a different topic, but this would also be a good time to bring up that they would work together for them Crooked Vultures along with
John Paul Jones. Yeah.
Thank you. I was supposed to say I just blanked on that, but yeah, those two worked together with him for another great supergroup album, which Dave Grohl is kind of becoming known for at this point.
Yeah, I just re-listened to that album the other day, actually. Funny enough, and it's pretty damn great. The funny thing is with this song, it was nominated for a Grammy for Best Hard Rock Performance, but it lost to All My Life by the Foo Fighters. So Dave beat himself to win the Grammy. It's pretty funny. So
That's amazing.
yeah, but all right. What's your next pick, Anthony?
My next pick is going to be Chris Penny's time with Coheed and Cambria. The song I picked is Here We Are Juggernaut from the album The Year of the Black Rainbow. All right, yeah. So the background behind Chris joining Coheed and Cambria is that their first and current drummer, the drummer that's been around from the most, Joss Uppard, was dealing with some drug issues and realized that he wasn't going to be able to recover on the tour. So during this time, Chris stepped in, and honestly, he's a real good drummer. The funny thing is that while he only is playing on the Year of the Black Rainbow, he's actually the group's drummer for the album before, Good Apollo on Burning Star 4, Volume 2, No World for Tomorrow, but couldn't play due to contractual obligations, which is why another Foo Fighter member, Taylor Hawkins, is credited is the session drummer on that album.
It's in my notes here, yeah.
Yeah, so also this is a good little side note is that Coheed and Cambria is probably the band I would consider the one that I quote unquote found on my own for the first time it was in high school, and while that's kind of maybe a little bit late for some people to find their first band, luckily I've actually had a lot of like good extended family members being really into music. So it's kind of weird. It was like, yeah, well, like I was told about Soundgarden. I was told about Pearl Jam. Like when I was growing up, right? So I couldn't so this was kind of the first band that I kind of found on my own after just kind of listening to them, going online, figuring out who they are, buying not just this album or like not just the one album, but trying to find their backlog, etc. So which is to say is that I disagree with a lot of the fan base, or the quote unquote vocal fan base, who will hammer Chris as, weirdly enough, being quote unquote too good of a technical drummer, and being like, oh, Josh's perfect for the job. And while I do agree, Josh is the perfect drummer for Coheed and Cambria based on his skill set and what the band wants to do, I honestly feel like the reason why people pick on Chris so much is because they kind of just don't like Year of the Black Rainbow as an album, and are kind of, instead of blaming the whole band and maybe Claudio, because obviously he's the main kind of source of the band's writing and direction, blames Chris because obviously he's the new member, right? So he's the one that did that, kind of forgetting that he was on the album before in terms of the writing process, and they liked the drum. They didn't have a problem with the drumming there, this is kind of the funny thing when about, I guess, fans, and kind of goes back to the moment where you're talking back to Deep Purple, right, where a crappy fan base can really hinder somebody's time with a band, and one of the reasons why they don't last as long as they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is also a good song, I thought. And like the other Coheed and Cambria songs that I like, I have no idea what's going on story-wise or lore-wise with the rest of the Amory Wars or whatever. I just like the song on like a melody and chorus level. It just hits the right part of my brain there. But I was not familiar with the name Chris Penny, but I do know the Dillinger Escape Plan. I have heard a couple songs by them, and he played the drums on both of them. So, yeah, he's 3 for 3 in my book, I guess. I don't know.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, so my next pick, this is a band of prog rock stalwarts. Not the only case of prog rock on my list, by the way, but this is the Moody Blues. And before they were prog rock, they were a British beat band fronted by Denny Laine. This is from their debut album, The Magnificent Moodies, from 1965. And it's the only album with Laine on it, as well as Clint Warwick. And this is the song Go Now.
We've already said goodbye. Since you gotta go, oh, you better go now. Go now, go now, go now. Before you see me cry. What you intend to do now? 'Cause how many times I have to tell you, darling, darling, I'm still in love with you now. We've already said so long.
Yeah, just a really beautiful song. I love the harmonies and the piano on it. It's right at that turning point from the British beat scene of the late 50s, early 60s, into the more psychedelic, Baroque pop era of the late 60s. And this was the Moody Blues' first big hit. It was number 1. And that first album is half covers, like this one is, and half original songs by Denny Laine and Mike Pinder. And then when Laine and Warwick leave, there is that immediate turn with the next album, which is Days of Future Past, which is a concept album of all original songs and an orchestra. It's got Nights in White Satin, Tuesday Afternoon. It's a really sharp change. So the Denny Laine era definitely sounds like an anomaly compared to the Moody Blues that a lot of people know, which is, the prog rock stylings, Anthony.
Yeah, no. This was definitely something that I haven't heard before, and so it was great to kind of see this part of the Moody Blues. Honestly, a band that I need to listen more to, just in general, but this was... so to date this part of the podcast even more, it's finally starting to actually feel like spring. So I listened to this not by accident, or just happened to be like, oh, it's one of the nicer days out. Listening to it, I was walking and taking a nice walk, and I'm like, oh, this is actually the perfect music for what I'm doing right now. Because when you said Moody Blues, I'm like, I wasn't quite expecting to hear what I heard, but I was pleasantly surprised for what I got. It was, this is good stuff. It would have been interesting to see if he kept on, if you would have saw milder. It seems like a weird term to use, but I get, you know what I mean? Like if that influence kind of lingers longer and kind of grows into a more psychedelic or lighter version of prog, or if they stay that, or whatever the case would have been in this what if scenario.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we'll have what if questions the whole way through here, of course. But I think in this case, Denny Laine leaving was a good decision, I think, long term, because he would eventually wind up with just some guy named Paul McCartney and his wife Linda in a band called Wings, and they would have a few hits of their own, and they would actually cover Go Now in concerts with Denny singing. In fact, it's on the Wings Over America live album. So, things turned out okay for Denny Lane after he left the Moody Blues, I'd say, Anthony. So, but all right, what you got next, Anthony?
Well, I have one that maybe not many people have actually listened to. This is a song by a band named at the time Otis Williams and the Distance. It's called Come On, and the artist that I'm selecting for this track is Al Bryant. Okay. So this one might be thinning the line on it, but Al Bryant is this pick because not only was he in the band called Otis Williams and the Distant, but more infamously, he was one of the original members of a little band called The Temptations, which was more or less kind of conceived as almost a supergroup of two different bands, Otis Williams in the Distance and the Primes, which would frequently perform with, at the time known as the Primettes, but more famously known as the Supremes. In any case, this track was selected specifically because not only is Al singing, but it also was used on the made-for-TV movie, The Temptations. And one thing to note is that while in the movie, the character Al is singing the lead. In real life, Al was the second lead, and was singing the high notes in that song. But what was mostly accurate was that Al was famously fired for kind of a collection of a drinking problem, being generally pessimistic, and the breaking point being that during a Motown Christmas party where they were performing for all of their coworkers and bosses, Al had a particularly bad performance. And then when everybody wanted them to go on for an encore, he refused. And that was kind of the moment where he's kicked off the band. And the reason why I'm saying this is kind of a technical thing is that he technically isn't on any of the quote-unquote Temptation records, because the whole reason why his attitude's an issue is because the Temptations famously had a very hard time getting through the Motown kind of quality assurance. So that's kind of why I wanted to click that one. Technically, I also could have gone for just David Ruffin, but I kind of felt that was almost too much of a cheat, just because that's a classic lineup, right? That's where almost a bunch of the early hits are from, despite the fact that I do like Edwards' time with the Temptations, with more of the psychedelic stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well, it definitely makes for the more interesting story to talk about. It's one thing if you're in a band for just a short amount of time, but you have hits, you have a string of successful records. It's another thing to be in a band where there's nothing going on. They were the Hitless Temptations for a while for a reason. That was their nickname. They just couldn't score a hit. and it's more interesting to be a guy who is in that era of a band and then leave, and then whoopsie daisy, the next era of the band is the one that gets the hits. That's the more, emotional gut punch there for sure. And actually, one of your upcoming picks is probably the most famous example of that, of a guy who was in a band before they were big, before they were famous. He gets kicked out, and then after that, they get the new guy in, and then the rocket ship takes off. So we'll get to that real soon. But as far as this goes, this is really good. This is a really good song. I love the range of those 50s, 60s vocal groups because, Al Bryant has that really high voice in the intro, and then you have Melvin Franklin, who is just, the bass, who is deeper than the Mariana Trench. His voice is that low. And obviously that dynamic in the lineup would continue throughout the rest of the band's run, albeit with different members. But Al Bryant, man, he was on the train, and he got off a few stops too early.
Yeah. So with that, give it to you for the next selection.
Yeah. So we're gonna go in a very different direction here with my next pick because we're going punk rock with The Clash. And I picked a song from their self-titled debut album from '77, and this is a song called Career Opportunities.
They offered me the office, offered me the job. They said I'd better take anything they got. Do you wanna make tea at the BBC? Do you really wanna be a cop? Career opportunity, the one that never knocked. Every job they offer used to keep you up the dock. Career opportunity, the one that never knocked. I hate the army and I hate the RAF. I don't wanna go fighting in the jungle heat. I hate to live on Sunday food. I won't open that phone for you. Career opportunity, the one that never knocked. Every job they offer used to keep you up the dock. Career opportunity, the one that never knocked.
So there are two versions of The Clash's debut album. The UK version, the original version, came out in '77. The US version came out in '79. Actually, after the second album, Give 'Em Enough Rope, came out. So now Topper Headon, who, when people think of the drummer in The Clash, he's the guy they think of. He's on the newer songs that were added onto the US version. But the guy on the UK version is the band's original drummer, Terry Chimes. He plays on all the songs from '77, including this one. The thing is, Terry Chimes left right after they finished recording that debut album, which is why he's not on the album cover. It's only Joe, Mick, and Paul. And that's when Topper comes in to replace him, which is funny because we have a song called Career Opportunities, which is about the dismal state of the economy in England at the time and the lack of good jobs for young people and all that. And here's a guy who's about to give up his job for one of the most influential bands of all time. So Terry's loss is Topper's gain, Anthony.
Yeah, and what's kind of funny is that through the original part of the run of The Clash, especially the early part, it kind of feels like Terry just keeps getting called up. I think there's a part about him, he auditioned for the band, didn't get it. Then the drummer that they really wanted, or they wanted first, didn't really work out, so then he went to him. And then there is a part later in the life where they call him up again, and then he, for another little bit of a transition run, and then stops. I guess the other thing is too that was funny when I was looking this up after listening was in the credits he's called Tory Crimes, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know whether or not that's just, oh hey, haha, funny, it's so close to the name, or how much of it is because I think one of the reasons why he did leave this band was he wasn't Like he's kind of saying, "Oh yeah, this punk rock lifestyle isn't really for me." And I'm like, is it because he's a Tory? Because the Clash are notoriously left wing.
Hmm.
But who knows? Because they keep bring. Sorry, but who knows? Because they keep bringing him back, right? So obviously, he can't be too bad if that was the
Yeah.
case, right?
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to say thank God for drugs, but in Terry's case, thank God for drugs, I guess, because yeah, he replaced Topper on the Combat Rock tour because Topper got kicked out for his drug habit. So
Yep.
yeah, a little bit of turnabout's fair play, I guess, with that. But yeah, Tory crimes on the album sleeve, which is a little bit of UK political humor in any event. So yeah, but all right, Anthony, what is your next pick?
Yeah. Well, my next pick, you kind of already tipped the hat a little bit. Well, I don't know actually, because I do have another very famous instance of this, though not quite the going back to what happened to Al Bryant, but
This is the one I was referring to. So yeah.
okay, yeah. So yeah, this is Pete Best, and obviously the band is the Beatles, and the song I picked is one of the demos that Pete Best is actually on. It's "Love Me Do," first version.
You know I love you. I'll always be true. So please love me do. Oh, love me do. Someone to love. Someone you. Someone to love. Someone like you. Love me do. You know I love you. I'll always be true. So please love me do. Oh, love me
And I probably one of the reasons why Pete Best got let go is maybe you could have hear it. It's a different performance, that's for sure. Honestly, there are some other demos which Pete Best is on, some covers that actually shows like why he was picked in the first place. He has in those recordings, he's very up tempo, upbeat, driving some of those cover songs a little bit better. But like, yeah, that's a bad album or recording. It's like I said, this is the only song where I was like, oh, I do not like this song, but I have to pick this song because there's no other good example of why Pete Best didn't let go. And honestly, it's the same like literally what I could say beat for beat for with Al Bryant kind of fits the exact same thing as Pete Best, where he had a drinking problem, he was being very unpleasant, and he was very bad at exactly the wrong time, which is why Ringo Starr's was the replacement. And like you said before, the rocket ship took off. Honestly, in a very similar time frame as the Temptations, right? So it's what?
Yeah.
62 is when Pete Best gets kicked out, and then 64 is when Al Bryant gets kicked out, right? So in these two small moves in a relatively short amount of time are going to set off two of the biggest, most influential bands of all time of their genres, just in the stratosphere.
Yeah, I mean, in the fumbled the bag Olympics, I think Pete would win gold medal every time. Because yeah, it's well. First of all, it's amazing just how nervous Paul and John sound. You can really hear it, especially the warble in Paul's voice. And I don't think Pete was helping all that much. I mean, to be fair, again, I'm only judging this based off of this one recording, this one take. But his performance here, it's not my tempo, to quote the movie Whiplash. He's all over the place. I mean, I'm not a drumming expert by any stretch, but you can tell that he's off the mark. And you can see why, yeah, getting Ringo was so important for this band. Because Ringo is, whatever jokes you want to say about him, he's a drummer's drummer. He is respected so much because of his drumming. And if you listen to the Ringo version of the song, it's it's night and day, Anthony. So yeah.
And the interviews with Lennon on McCartney kind of backed that point up, obviously 100%. Where it's like Lennon was like he was only recruited because they needed a drummer to go to Hamburg. We were pretty sick of Pete Best from the moment, called him a lousy drummer, and then like obviously put over Ringo because while they have always needled at Ringo a bit, they're like, yeah, you're not even the best drummer in the band, like. He's not. He is. He's the best drummer in the band. He's Ringo Starr. Like, he's really good at being a drummer. I guess what I'll say about Pete Best is funny because it's like, there's a world if, like, Pete Best finds a different band. Like I said, some of the, like I said, this is obviously me taking words from interviews or bits and pieces of little demos. But if he was this more like fast-paced, like kind of wild drummer, like upbeat drummer, like we're getting to the point where like proto-punk the thing, right? So there's a world where Pete Best instead of fumbles the bag, finds like a different band and becomes like obviously you don't. I'm not gonna talking down punk because I love punk, but like, there's some ridiculously good drummers in punk, but in the spirit of punk. The DIY-ness of it all, you don't need the most technically skilled people. You need the most passionate people. And potentially that whatever Pete Best had, could have been something more. But obviously it wasn't. He fumbled, like you said, he fumbled the bag hard. He won that Olympics. Olympics you do not want to win.
No, you do not. No. And to add insult to injury, the album that this was put out on, Anthology 1, the cover is like this collage of various photos, and the center photo is John, Paul, George, and Pete, but they've ripped Pete's face off of the cover, and underneath it is another photo, and Ringo's face is positioned there instead, or like over Pete's in the position there. So that tells you what you need to know, Anthony. So
for sure.
Yeah, but all right. My next pick. This is a great band called Thin Lizzy, and this is from the only album with Gary Moore on guitar, or one of the guitars anyway. It's from Black Rose, a rock legend, and this song is called "With Love."
She's broke my heart and made me sad. She's broke my heart. You foolish boy, you lost what you had.
That's the good stuff right there, man. Yeah, Phil Lynott, he had so much heart and emotion in his voice and his songwriting. And Gary Moore, that was him doing the guitar solo. I mean, that man could play. Rest in peace to the both of them. And it's funny, Gary, he had joined Thin Lizzy twice before this, but he wasn't around long enough to actually make a full album with the band. This is the only full album that he's on, and he still left the year that it came out, which is just amazing. But he's he's one of those guitar players that is so beloved by guitar players. People who know him really love him, and the album that we did get with him and Thin Lizzy is just fantastic. It's my favorite one that they ever did. So I recommend people check it out, Anthony.
Yeah, no, it's good because I'll definitely have to listen to the album because I have been. And since you said it's your favorite, I'm definitely gonna put it up on the backlog. priority list for sure. The song was great. And yeah, that was the other thing. It does one of the notes that I had too when I was like looking this up. I'm like, wait, how many times is Gary Moore in this band and just not gotten on an album? Speaking to the theme of like why somebody gets like a transitional championship reign in wrestling, like this is it. This is actually like this is the reason. It's like, hey, I've been with this band 3 times. Can I please get on an album?
Yeah, well, the reason he left after the album, he quit mid-tour because, in his words, he was just sick of the drugs. Like, he didn't like what the drugs were doing to the band, and he quit. And that's so unique, I think, because normally when a guy leaves a band because of drugs, it's because he's the one doing the drugs, not the other guys. But in this case, it was the opposite. So, yeah, very unique case there for sure with him. But like I said, this album is so good. Most people, when they think of Thin Lizzy, they just, they know Jailbreak, they know The Boys Are Back in Town, but they have so many other good songs like this, and I implore people to check out more of their stuff. But all right, Anthony, what's your next pick?
Well, I think my next pick's not gonna be the kind of fun dunking session that my last 2 picks kind of were. Because my next pick is Syd Barrett from the band Pink Floyd, and the song I'm picking is See Emily Play.
Emily tries but misunderstands. She's often inclined to borrow somebody's dreams till tomorrow. There is no other day. Let's try it another way. You'll lose your mind and play free games for me. See Emily play. Soon after dark, Emily cries, gazing through trees in sorrow, hardly a sound till tomorrow. There is no other day.
Yeah, so the sadness with this one obviously is that, Syd Barrett was a co-founder of the band. He was the front man. He's the primary songwriter. Huge influence with more of a whimsical style than what people would come to know the band for. And the reason why this is also sad is like, obviously it's a lot of like substance abuse is sad, but like he was just plagued with health issues. Obviously some of it's drugs, but like this is clearly an act where like the band doesn't want to go out with him, but is going to go keep going without him. And while you can kind of even see it with a lot of their songs, there's songs like Shine On You Crazy Diamond and Wish You Were Here, where they're literally singing about how they wish Syd was here to bask in their fame, their success. With that said, I would be of the opinion that Pink Floyd would be around the same level of fame if Syd was with the band. I will say though that some of this bittersweet, this regret, this tinge of sadness and darkness that you hear in Pink Floyd in general comes out because of this happening to them, right? So that direction of them stopping to be like turning from more of a whimsical style to a harder, deeper edge, it probably doesn't happen, or maybe happens slower. Like, who knows? But obviously they all, like every single one of the band members obviously like clearly wanted him to be with the band if everything would have been able to work out that way, right? So always sad to kind of see those kind of situations. But the one thing I would say though is, like, obviously Pink Floyd's a huge band, right? But I think like this is obviously the opposite for what you just did with Thin Lizzy, right? Where like the albums people probably would have checked out first or would have maybe stopped with, right? It's going to be the Wall. It's going to be Dark Side of the Moon. But the earlier stuff, the psychedelic, more whimsy stuff, that still is very much Pink Floyd. That's the stuff that I would recommend. Hey, check it out, give them a chance, because that part of the discography is also very good. Even if it is, you can see that more and more of a different take, different maybe level of rawness, and like maybe the production. Obviously, it's mid '60s, right? It's not it's not the grandiose production that The Wall is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually don't really listen to the first chunk of Pink Floyd's stuff. I'm one of those people who pretty much go from like Dark Side onwards. So I haven't listened to any of the early years in quite a while, but I forgot, just how poppy songs like this and Arnold Lane were. The two big singles with Sid. Like, yes, there is that psychedelic and Baroque touch in there too, but it's not like this, ooh, wavy gravy, man. Mm-hmm. It's still rather accessible. Unfortunately, like you said, with Sid's problems, they couldn't continue with him in the band, so they moved over to that classic quartet lineup of Gilmour, Waters, Mason, and Wright. And they would get more experimental. They would get more prog rock as the band goes on. And we do get Dark Side and Wish You Were Here because of Sid leaving and because of his mental problems and all that. And on the one hand, yeah, it's a sad story of Sid's, decline. On the other hand, if all that stuff doesn't happen, yeah, the history of music looks a bit different, I'd say, Anthony.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right, so my next pick, it's my turn to get a bit technical here, because this is a band that technically stopped after 2 albums and then started a new band. But this is Joy Division, and I went with one of their singles. This is Transmission. So again, I'm being technical here because after Ian Curtis, the lead singer, killed himself, Joy Division ended, and then New Order began. But if we're talking about, short stints in bands that were also hugely influential, I mean, this is up there, because for a band with only 2 studio albums, one of which came out after Ian's death, and some singles and a few EPs, they are so important to post-punk and new wave and alt-rock and so many bands that came after them. And, they don't sound like the friendly radio superstar pop band, that's for sure. They sound very gothic and dreary. Ian's voice is very distinct, radio, live transmission. But they came around at the right time and the right scene, and their impact is still felt today, Anthony.
No, yeah. There's very little I could even add that already hasn't been talked about Joy Division. Joy Division is one of the most influential acts in that era of that scene. And honestly, also, New Order is pretty big in and of themselves. And yeah, Ian Curtis is he's going to set up this whole era for music, and No, it obviously makes a whole lot of sense that we talk about Joy Division, just because, honestly, when we were doing this and we had lists, I also had like a couple lists that I didn't pick, like that were bands that were very short term, like the Laws, right? Like, so there are bands that just have a short life period, uh, and no, Joy Division, like that. You say it's technical. I'm like, no, this makes a whole lot of sense just because of the impact that Joy Division, Ian Curtis specifically has on music.
I mean, if I had to pick, I'm more of a New Order guy than Joy Division, because New Order leaned more into dance and electronica, and had more of a pop edge to them. But I love Transmission. I love that song, and I love the way it chugs along and builds up. And by the end, when he's going, dance, 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 dance to the radio, I'm punching the air. I'm jolting around the room there. So. I just wanted to give Joy Division some love on this episode here for sure. But all right, Anthony, what you got next?
Yeah, no, my next pick is another early exit for a band. Not quite the same level of like somebody quote unquote fumbled the band, because this person does have extensive level of artistry. Maybe not the same level of the band, but my pick is Paul Di'Anno, one of the first lead singers of Iron Maiden, and the song I'm picking is Wrathchild. So I have to think that Paul Di'Anno version of Iron Maiden. Okay, maybe it doesn't get up as quick as it did because Bruce Dickinson's this huge personality that absolutely draws people in during interviews and press tours and all that other stuff that obviously eventually they didn't want to do at all. But Paul has the chops. He was a great singer, and obviously this is another case of where like drugs kind of come in, being unreliable, and the moment that you're unreliable, especially when, because Iron Maiden's a band that actually is, their main songwriter isn't the lead singer. It's Steve Harris. So when you have a situation where you have an unreliable member, you kind of look for, you're expendable, right? You're more expendable than other members of the band, even though obviously there are also some situations where the lead person gets kicked out. But in this case, obviously Iron Maiden moves to Bruce. But even you can tell in the early stuff, like the next album over, like stuff like Run to the Hills, that's probably meant for Paul. You can kind of like that, like you kind of understand that, like obviously when you have a new band member, especially a personality like Bruce that does actually have like will very soon come to put his own input with the band in with Steve Harris as partners. But obviously that first part is like, well, Steve was writing for a band that had a different singer, and despite the fact that Run to the Hills is a huge hit, looking back at it, you're like, oh, yeah, if you listen to Wrathchild, if you listen to the other early works, you're like, oh, I think that actually would have fit Paul, maybe not, like, kind of a little bit better, or it was meant for him, right? It was something that was meant for somebody else. And yeah, Paul had, like I said, I don't think none of the bands that he was in kind of went were big, but he toured. He toured for years and years and made a living as a musician. So it's not a situation like Al Bryan. It's not a situation like even like Pete Best, right? It's a situation where he ended up in a solid place, right? He was still making music. Where it just so happens that the other place that he could have been was Iron Maiden, which obviously you'd rather be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's, with the Paul Di'Anno stuff, there's a real, I guess, gritty quaintness, you might say.
Yeah.
With those first two Maiden albums, and there's some real gems on them. I mean, Wrathchild is a kick-ass song, for sure. Murders in the Rue Morgue, Running Free, Phantom of the Opera, the song Iron Maiden. But yeah, once Bruce Dickinson comes aboard, I mean, everything gets bigger. Everything gets more grandiose, more operatic with Bruce's voice. The stages get bigger, the albums get longer, the tours get longer, and that's not really a bad thing. I mean, I love Maiden so much. It's just that, yeah, there is this noticeable jump when you go from the Di'Anno era to the Dickinson era, Anthony.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it is funny to be like, because I agree with you, but it is funny to use the word quaint when you're talking about even early Iron Maiden. It's like that was a good hard rock song, and you're like, yeah, and like look when it goes up to 11 when Bruce comes in.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce is singing about Alexander the Great and, the Battle of Passchendaele. These aren't things I assume that Paul Di'Anno would sing about.
Though,
just in my opinion, but I don't know. But
though he did sing about Phantom of the Opera. And
that's true.
I almost picked that track, but then I was like, I know that you're only playing clips, but I also I wanted to select something that wasn't like multiple things that weren't over like nearing 10 minutes. Which, let's be fair, with our picks, we could have gone real deep end with so many prog rock bands and and heavy metal acts from the 70s.
Yeah. Again, lineup changes galore. Those are beneficial for an episode like this for sure. And speaking of the wild thing here with Maiden, and I didn't know this until a little bit ago. As you said there, Paul Di'Anno was not the first lead singer of Maiden. He was the first one on record, but the first one was a guy named Paul Mario Day.
Yep.
Then they had a guy named Dennis Wilcock, and then Di'Anno came in. And then Bruce Dickinson, his real first name is Paul. So 3 out of the first 4 lead singers of Iron Maiden are all named Paul. How about that?
What a weird coincidence.
Yeah, just strange stuff there. But all right, my next pick. This is staying in the early '80s here. This is the debut album of Depeche Mode, and it's the only album with founding member Vince Clarke on it. This is from Speak and Spell, and this song is Just Can't Get Enough. So that's one of the band's earliest hit singles, and it's still their most enduring song. Even after all these years, they still play it live. And much like with See Emily Play or Go Now, it sounds a lot different than so much of the rest of the band's output. Because Depeche Mode, they are a largely keyboard-based band, but the sounds skew a lot darker, more industrial, moodier as time goes on. And this is just pure, sugary synth pop here. Catchy as all hell. Not saying I don't like it, but it's certainly not an indication of the darker turn that's coming up. But if Vince Clarke didn't leave after the first album, then who knows what directions the band, would go in. Maybe they stay with this teeny bop or synth pop sound more. Maybe they break up. Who knows, Anthony?
No, for sure. One thing I like before the podcast, I was looking this up. I was like, okay, like what's Vince Clarke's deal? Because obviously I have heard the song. I know that he was a short-term member, and I was like, okay, so what's up? And I'm like, it's funny because it's like, the band went a lot darker after he went along, and it seemed like that's the reason why he quit the band. Or at least what it was mentioned when I was looking it up. It was like, which, hey, maybe it's not true, but he was like, yeah, he was listening. He was basically saying, I'm not a fit for this band. The band wanted to go darker direction. And kind of see here with Just Can't Get Enough. And that's where he was kind of, in that more poppy, kind of brighter era. That's the way that he wanted to go. So either he left or they decided to part ways. But it's definitely a situation where I was like, oh, it's a very different reason. Like, this is much more of an active role of leaving because the other band is darker, as opposed to kind of what happened with Pink Floyd, where maybe part of the reason why Pink Floyd got darker was because Sid left, but not because both because of his presence, but also because of why Sid left. Where in this case, it might just be a case of, hey, Vince is gone. Let's do the thing that we want to do as a band, which is play a lot. Yeah, like I said, a lot more of the synth being industrialist, like that end of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Vince, after he left, he became kind of a new wave journeyman for a little bit there, because he leaves Depeche Mode and he starts a band called Yazoo, or Yaz, with Alison Moyet. And they have a few hits, Only You, Situation, Don't Go. They break up after 2 albums. Then he forms a group called The Assembly and puts out 1 single, and then that ends. And then he finally forms Erasure with Andy Bell, and they're still going 40 years later. So, it took a few tries for him to, find a permanent home, I guess, Anthony. So
yeah. No, I mean, at least like this case, you kind of see it, right? It's like, oh, well, clearly some of this influence from him, like I said, this is in the case of, like I said, one of the people that it's drugs, they were unreliable. This was just simply seems like a case of different tastes in art. And and then I think I read that Don't Go, like he was going to try to sell to Depeche Mode that song. Like, hey, I wrote this song. Do you want to play it? And Depeche Mode turned it down, which probably a good thing for, in this case, for Vince, because that, like I said, that was one of the hits that he had with that band. And if he doesn't have that hit with that band, then maybe this is a more sad tale where his second group doesn't get off the ground, which then doesn't lead to a bunch of other bands and then Erasure, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Depeche, they don't need more hits in their catalog. They have plenty to go around for sure. But all right, what's your next pick there, Anthony?
Well, speaking of bands that don't need any more hits in their catalog, the band I'm picking is Metallica. And the artist I'm going to pick is one of the famous short-term members of Metallica, Dave Mustaine. And the song technically, maybe, depending on who you ask, can go one of 2 names. But the one that I will call it is The Mechanics. Yeah, so maybe people obviously that are kind of follow heavy metal would know, and maybe people who don't would know that Dave Mustaine is the lead singer for Megadeth, which was a band that was founded because he got kicked out of Metallica. So that story is obviously well known in their feud. But this song, while still pretty popular piece of trivia, the interesting thing here is that The Mechanics was a song that Dave Mustaine created in a prior band, Panic. And then when he joined Metallica, they played this song during their earlier days with that grouping. But he got kicked out before Metallica released their first album. But Metallica apparently just really liked this song. So despite the fact that Dave's not in the band anymore, they decide to rewrite the lyrics and release the song as The Four Horsemen, which obviously made Dave super mad, which is probably one of the reasons why on Megadeth's first album, he releases The Mechanics, his song. Yeah, and there's obviously a huge discussion, obviously back and forth between these two parties of like, why would you release a song? But honestly, I think the funnier thing is even after all of that blow up, after all of that, they still use obviously legally you're gonna write that Dave Mustaine wrote the song, but it actually says that the Four Horsemen was also co-written by co-written. That is true. The other thing that's true is that on the second release album for Metallica, you have Ride the Lightning, which is also a song that is also written by Dave Mustaine. So it is kind of really funny that Metallica would do this, get the frustration, everything blowing up between them and Dave afterwards, and then still release another song that has him as a co-writer, which obviously I don't think Dave's going to be happy about, though I'm guessing the royalties for those songs are probably pretty good.
We should say this was on the No Life to Leather demo.
Yes, this demo and track, yeah.
Yeah, and that was a pretty famous demo for the band because it has a whole bunch of songs that would eventually end up on Kill 'Em All, the first album. And not only is this when Dave was still in the band, this was when Ron McGovney, the bass player, was still in the band before Cliff Burton took his spot. So a double short-term guy here, real early days. And musically it sounds like Metallica. They're not doing glam metal or bluesy rock. This is thrash, but James's voice is so high. Like he kind of sounds like Dave even at times. He's not doing any yeah. And the lyrics, they're doing like an AC/DC-esque car metaphor for sex thing. Whoever thought you'd be better at turning a screw than me? I do it for my life. Made my drive shaft crank. Made my pistons bulge. Made my ball bearings melt from the heat. It's a bit jarring to hear it come from Metallica, but again, these guys are all like 20 years old, so it's not surprising that Dave would write something so juvenile.
Exactly. It's like, you're right. Like, well, it is Dave Mustaine. So that I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. You're like, yeah, a very young Dave Mustaine wrote this song, and you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, that checks out. And then obviously the Four Horsemen is a completely different lyrical content, where a bit more up of what you would think when you think Metallica, right?
I was about to say, yeah. I mean, you compare this to the Four Horsemen, same riff, same melody and all that, but it's also a longer song. It's about 7 minutes. They add a bridge, another solo, and it's very different than the gas station sex romp.
Yeah.
That the Mechanics is about. This is the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and the End of Days and all that, which I think fits Metallica's vibe a lot better than the Mechanics version does.
For sure.
All right, so my next pick here, this is the band War, specifically Eric Burdon and War. Eric Burdon, the lead singer of The Animals, and this was the band that he joined after the Animals ended. But he was only on the first 2 albums, and this is the debut album, Eric Burdon Declares War, and this is the song Spill the Wine.
I stood high up on a mountain top, naked to the world, in front of every kind of girl. There was long ones, tall ones, short ones, brown ones, black ones, round ones, big ones, crazy ones. Out of the middle came a lady.
Una cosa de loco, una fiesta.
She whispered in my ear
Pero todas las cosas
something
están
crazy.
azul, azul, porque estoy
She
en viaje.
said, "Spill the wine, take that girl. Spill the wine and take that girl. Spill the wine, take that girl. Spill the wine, take that girl." I could feel hot flames of fire roaring at my back.
So when I hear that song, I always think of the pool party scene in Boogie Nights. But it's funny, you know, I had heard this song a bunch of times before I learned that it was Eric Burdon on lead vocals. I was like, wait a minute, that's Eric Burdon. That's totally his voice that I've heard in all those Animals songs. So I was totally caught by surprise there. And I think part of it is, you know, I only know of the band as War, not Eric Burdon and War. And the only other War songs that I know are the ones from when after Burdon left. You know, Lowrider, Why Can't We Be Friends, The Cisco Kid. And those songs are grounded in funk and Latin music and reggae. And those are not genres that, you know, I associate with Eric Burdon. You know, he's the Animals guy to me. He's the British Invasion guy. So I wonder how many other people out there, you know, were also surprised to learn that, Anthony.
No. I mean, obviously, it's kind of the same way for me because throughout my life, it's like a selection of, wait, War. It's the same War that plays Lowrider, and then Why Can't We Be Friends? And then it turns into, wait, Eric Burdon was in War? Oh, okay. This. Then you hear like Spill the Wine, because I also learned about Spill the Wine from Boogie Nights. Honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's kind of a shame that Eric Burdon didn't live in a more modern time, because the issue with Eric Burdon, like I say issue, but like the reason why Eric Burdon potentially wasn't as big as he probably could have been is just he had issues with asthma. Mm-hmm. And for a lead singer, that's a problem. That's a huge problem, right? So maybe he had more modern medicine. Maybe that would have been a longer career. Maybe spend more time with War. Which would have been interesting. I will say, when I found out that Eric Burdon was like a part of War for a while, it made a couple of decisions that the Animals did with the types of songs they covered a bit more easy to understand, right? And I know that would have been an era where people were stealing music all over the place and re-recording covers without care. But I'm like, oh, okay. It kind of makes more sense that the British Invasion guy was singing like Black Soul songs, like House of the Rising Sun.
Yeah. I mean, when you name the second album of the band The Black Man's Burden, spelled Burdon, I mean, that's just a great pun right there, first of all. But he definitely was steeped in, you know, black music. For sure, even in the Animals, just doing it, you know, with a bunch of white guys, you know, backing him up. So, but here you've got black members of the band, you've got Latin members of the band, and all that stuff, which is pretty cool. You also have a Dutch member of the band, you know, a white guy with a big afro and a mustache and a harmonica. So, very diverse mix going on there. And yeah, the reason he left the band is because he collapsed on stage because of an asthma attack, and the band continued on without him. So. Yeah, if he had, you know, that under control better, maybe, I don't know, maybe he stays on longer. Who knows? Yeah. But all right, Anthony, what is your second to last pick?
So with my second to last pick, I wanted to definitely air towards somebody that was in like the later life of the band, because a lot of my picks were people like Dave Mustaine, Al Bryant, the people who were in the band before they got big. So my pick is Rick Vito, who was one of the final members of like the original run of Fleetwood Mac, and the song is "Love Is Dangerous." Now, I think the tale of Fleetwood Mac and on how Lindsay and Stevie Nicks joined the band and then primarily broke up the group is pretty well known. Don't need to go too much into that, though. Honestly, I always recommend live performances of The Chain during that era, because it's amazing to watch those two look at each other like they're gonna kill each other every single time. It's fantastic. With Fleetwood kind of just looking like he's having a grand ball, not caring about anything else in the world. But no, for this song, there in the previous picks, I had ideas for artists. I had ideas for which song, like maybe I was questioning which song to pick. But for this, I didn't know I was going to pick Rick Vito until I heard the song, honestly, because I was like, oh, this is like, it's a cool, funky beat. Little bit of like, it's a little different from what you would like remember Fleetwood Mac doing, and it's actually a song where this isn't just a member sliding into a group. Clearly he has input. He's one of the the two singers, along with Stevie Nicks. He wrote the song. It's his song to pitch, and also it like the riff and the whole vibe of it. It makes a whole lot more sense when you look at his history. He was kind of more of a session guitar, or I say session guitar, but he's a journeyman, right? He most famously kind of was part of Bob Seger's group, including being the guitarist for Like a Rock, among other acts throughout the history of like in many careers of different session guitarists or journeyman musicians. But this is kind of like, hey, yes, Fleetwood Mac is in a decline. Their most famous group, the formation of the group has broken up, and he's filling in a huge role, right? And yeah, obviously we know that this isn't the start of the second win. This is kind of the end. But like I said, I had a lot of fun with this song, and I was happy to kind of share it with everybody else too, just to kind of see, hey, this is where it's going.
Yeah, this song would be a good theme for the band in general, just given all the romantic problems that they had over the years. But no, I had never heard this song before, or this album, but yeah, this sounds good. This sounds totally fine. I mean, as you said there, it's got to be real tough to not only have to follow Lindsey Buckingham and that classic era of the band, but to also not really be remembered as a member of Fleetwood Mac, because when you ask any jamoke on the street, who is in Fleetwood Mac, they'll say Stevie Nicks, they'll say Lindsay, they'll say Mick Fleetwood, Christy McVie, John McVie. That's the lineup. And guys like Rick Vito are going to get left behind. But he's not alone. I mean, there are a lot of members of Fleetwood Mac over the years that people just don't talk about because they weren't on Rumors or whatever. That's just the way it goes. So yeah, you can be like Rick Vito, be a perfectly good guitar player, do everything right, sing great, whatever, and it won't matter because you're not this other guy, Anthony.
Yep, 100%.
But all right, my next pick here. This is some more new wave from me. This is Simple Minds, and I went with a song from their album New Gold Dream, 81, 82, 83, 84. And I picked it for a very specific reason, which we'll get to. This song is Promised You a Miracle.
Love sails to a new life. Promised you a miracle. Beauty is our beauty thing. Promises, promises. As golden days break wandering. All that she says, even shows her love. Life is good. Everything is possible. Promises, everything is possible. I promised you a miracle. Believe is our beauty thing. Promises, promises. As golden days break wandering, reflects on them a while.
So this is the band's first top 40 hit, number 13 in the UK. And it's still a few years before peak Simple Minds with the Once Upon a Time album and Don't You Forget About Me and all that, which is the more arena rock sound the band adopted. This is still their new wave era with all the keyboards. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. It's not my favorite Simple Minds song, but the reason I picked it is because going into the album, they had replaced their original drummer with a guy named Kenny Hyslop. They record one song with him, this song, and then they fire him and replace him with a guy named Mike Ogletree. He plays on a few tracks, then they fire him and replace him with Mel Gaynor, who would finish the album and eventually become their longtime drummer. So, one album, 3 drummers, Anthony. How about that?
It's so funny. I mean, this song is, like I said, it's pretty good. I can understand, this is why this is a hit. This isn't my favorite version of Simple Minds, but it was good to hear. But the story is this is exactly why we're why you're bringing this up, because it's so funny. Yes, Kenny Hyslop is the one on this one, but it's what a big dunk on Mike Ogletree. We were brought in because as a last minute replacement for somebody that they weren't happy with Kenny. But you're so bad that they spend even more resources to find a different third drummer for this one album. Which, I mean, thankfully for Simple Minds, they found their drummer, right? So that obviously it was very good for the band, but that's tough.
Mm-hmm. Well, the even crazier thing is that they brought Mike Ogletree with them on tour for the first leg. He was playing the drums on the first leg of this tour, and then they replace him again with Mel Gaynor, who becomes, the permanent member there. So, he's out, he's in, he's out, he's in. It's a real whirlwind of events for old Mike there. But all right, Anthony, what's your last pick of the day?
So my last pick of the day is a little bit of a stretch because instead of what about a transitional person representing the championship theme, how about a transitional band? Because my pick is Temple of the Dogs, Hunger Strike.
But I can't beat on the powerless when my cup's already overfilled. But it's on the table, the fire's cooking, and the farming babies and the slaves are all working. And it's on the table, the mouths are choking, but I'm going hungry. I'm going hungry. I'm going hungry.
Right. So obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a backstory with this. So, when Soundgarden and a lot of the other bands of right before the whole boom of grunge, Chris Cornell, the lead singer of a band, Mother Love Bone, Andrew Wood, passes away, and as an after effect of this, Chris Cornell, who is at this moment still the lead singer of a very, very new Soundgarden, I think they had either released maybe one or two albums at the time, decides to create kind of a short-term super group as like kind of almost a tribute to Wood, and he gets Stone Gossard on rhythm guitar. He gets Jeff Ament on bass guitar, both who are ex-members of Mother Love Bone. And he also adds in Mike McCready on lead guitar, Matt Cameron on drums, and a little man called Eddie Vedder to kind of joins into the sessions. And they released one album, and it did pretty well, honestly. Like Hunger Strike, I think is a song that like kind of part of the canon of grunge. But the bigger thing is kind of twofold. First off, the members that I listed in Temple of the Dog, outside of Chris Cornell, you will know them as the classic lineup of Pearl Jam. Because the founding members of Pearl Jam include Eddie, Stone, Jeff, and Mike, and later would include Matt Cameron after he was the drummer, because Matt Cameron was at the time the drummer of Soundgarden.
Yep.
And so you have basically the formation of Pearl Jam from this moment in time. In addition, like kind of the thing that also kind of makes this interesting is Soundgarden wasn't like they were a started band. They had a couple, like they were a smaller band that just kind of getting off the ground. But in obviously a very short time, both to the prominence of how grunge is going to pop off in general, we're going to see a situation where Temple of the Dog's album drops in April of 1991. You have 10 releasing a couple months later in August, and then Soundgarden releases their kind of big hit, Bad Motorfinger, in October of that year. So you have like kind of a situation where you kind of, early in the podcast we were talking about with Queens of the Stone Age losing out to Foo Fighters in like the awards. Like you have a situation in 1991 where like you have Chris Cornell and Eddie Vedder and the rest of those two bands kind of having very successful albums all together in kind of this breakout year in general for grunge, and changing like the whole mainstream. What is now going to become the mainstream? All right, well, you say the mainstream, but like technically, obviously, we call it alternative, but like it was mainstream. It was everywhere, right? So like hugely influential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love this song. I've heard it so many times, and I'm still not sick of it. You know, I'll be 65 years old, and I'll still be going, and it's on the table, the fire's a cooking. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense to include a supergroup because those tend to be short-term bands anyway, with like one or two albums under their belt, if that. But this is like, yeah, a reverse supergroup where the members don't become famous until afterwards, you know, because, yeah, this is before Soundgarden hits big. This is before Pearl Jam was, you know, they were literally just starting at the time. I mean, this is Eddie Vedder's first featured vocal on an album, and he crushes it. And I'm not surprised this is the only album of theirs, because, yeah, it was done as a tribute to Andrew Wood, from his friends and former bandmates. So it's not meant to be a bigger thing beyond that. But also, yeah, 10, Bad Motorfinger out the same year. there's no time for Temple of the Dog to be a thing because these other bands they took off, Anthony.
Yeah, it's like, I guess it's like almost like the only thing I can equate it to is almost like a college football or basketball team where it's like look at this star-studded lineup. Like, can you believe that Eddie Vedder was the background vocalist in a band? like in this case, obviously, yeah, you understand with context, it makes a whole ton of sense. But yeah, it's just like it's amazing that like oh yeah, Chris Cornell has a not only is this a great artist, but he also has like this fantastic network of people, and he always finds a way to, be relevant. Whether it was this one time with Temple of the Dog, with Soundgarden, with Audioslave, right? He was just such a talented artist. It's a shame that we lost him when we did.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, they did various one-off performances and reunions up until Cornell died. And a few years ago, Pearl Jam, they did a version of Hunger Strike where the crowd sang Cornell's part, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's amazing. I'll have to go check that out.
Yeah, I don't know if there's video of it, but I read that somewhere. So, but all right, my last pick here, going with some more prog rock here. My prog rock boys in Yes. Now, Yes have had a lot of lineup changes over the years, that's for sure. But the one I'm focusing on is when Trevor Horn and Jeff Downs, aka the Buggles, came into the band in 1980. They put out an album called Drama, and this song is called Into the Lens.
Take heart, I could never let you go. And you always let the feeling show. Us, oh, how you never broke your heart, how you lose them if you feel the feeling start. I am a camera, camera, camera. I am a camera, camera, camera. I am a camera, camera, camera. And you may find time will blind you. This to just remind you all is meant to be.
So it's hard to think of two bands on paper that don't go together more than Yes and the Buggles. It's not a combination to think about, but I'll be damned if it doesn't work. I mean, Drama is a pretty good album. Much like Dio with Sabbath, the infusion of Horn and Downs really breathes new life into the band. You know, they were this stale prog rock band going into the 80s, and these guys come along and they really freshen things up. I mean, you still have the prog rock in there. This song is 8.5 minutes long. There's a song on the album called Machine Messiah that's 10.5 minutes. But you've also got all this, pop, new wave injection with the more updated production and the sound and the vocoder. And instead of the mystical, heady lyrics of John Anderson, you have a song about making memories and saving them like a camera lens. I am a camera, camera, camera. So there's a bit of a modern change there too, I suppose. So a different spin on the prog rock recipe, Anthony.
No, for sure. It is funny that in reviews of this album, people are kind of being like, "Oh, the album has tougher lyrics," and I'm like, technically correct. But camera is technically more tough than distinctive ramblings on the mystic fringe, quote unquote, which is also a true statement about early Yes. Like, as somebody who listens and has listened to a lot of prog rock, I too understand the esoteric ramblings of many a singer. And yeah, no, you're right. This is an album that is new, fresh, so much different from what came before. But funny enough, I think even though this is like the one album I think that they're on, right? Because the next one is a huge album for Yes when they break up after this and then come with potentially what their most iconic album, right? But kind of that the Yes that happens after this like drama still kind of keeps a little bit of the modern like injection that the Buggles put in, I think.
Oh yeah, I mean, this album was definitely a stepping stone of sorts to the next one, 90125, where they really go all in on pop and more straightforward rock with Owner of a Lonely Heart, which is still their biggest hit, and Changes and Leave It and those songs. So yeah, even though this was the one that they did before they broke up for a little bit, it's still, I think, pretty important in terms of that kind of change in sound. Now, Jeff Downs, he came back to the band in 2011 on an album called Fly From Here, and he's still with the band. And Trevor Horn, he produced that same album, and the singer on that album is a guy named Benoit David. But years later, they made an alternate version of the album called Fly From Here Return Trip, and it's a whole remix of the album with Trevor Horn on lead vocals. So there are now 2 Yes albums with Trevor Horn on lead vocals, so there you go.
Nice.
All right, well, that was the episode. Those were our picks. Anthony, thank you so much for being here, man. This was so great. Your first time on, and it was a lot of fun, man, so thank you.
All right, thank you for having me. This was a blast. Would love to be able to do this again if you let me.
Well, I figure since you're on the Transitional Champions episode, you might be more fitting as a transitional guest and never come back. So
who knows?
I'm kidding, of course. I'm kidding. Would love to have you back on for sure. But any plugs you want to give? Go right ahead.
Honestly, none. I mean, just like I said, as you kind of mentioned before, we know each other from the Discord. I really don't have anything to shill, which is a shame because this would be a good platform to do so.
That's okay. I'll do the shilling here. Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, all the great shows on there. Voicesofwrestling.com, previews, reviews, articles, things like that. Bluesky at Music of the Mat and at Just Andrew on Bluesky. If you want to leave a comment about this episode, share your picks, voicesofwrestling.com/Discord. That's also where I post the Spotify playlist for each episode. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, or your player of choice, and leave a nice rating and review. Alright, so the playout song for today. For a few years in the 1990s, Dave Navarro was not a member of Jane's Addiction, but rather a member of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He replaced John Frusciante, who would eventually replace him again. And Navarro is only on one Peppers album, One Hot Minute. And that's not an album I really listened to all that much, but I do know this song. This is the biggest hit from it. It's a song called My Friends. Thanks again, Anthony.
Thank you for having me.
My friends are so depressed. I feed a question of your loneliness. Confide, 'cause I'll be on your side. You know I will. You know I will. Ex-girlfriend called me up. Alone and desperate on the prison phone. They want to give her 7 years of being sad. I love all of you. Hurt by the cold. So hard and lonely too.
Music of the Mat is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. The songs used throughout this show are property of their respective copyright holders.
Hi, I'm Andrew Rich, And if you're like me, you look at the state of modern wrestling discourse and think, wow, what a cesspool. That's why I'm here to tell you about Music of the Mat Remix. That's right, your favorite wrestling music podcast is back with a new format, where I bring on a guest and we play songs related to wrestling-themed topics. It could be a wrestling reference, a wrestling concept, a wrestling pun, things of that nature. Now you might be saying, Andrew, that is a very, very tenuous connection to pro wrestling on a wrestling podcast network. Is this just an excuse to hang out with your friends and talk about music and ignore the rest of the wrestling landscape? Yes. Yes, it is. So listen to Music of the Mat Remix on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, available on Apple, Spotify, or your podcast player of choice.